Well, joining us now is Dr. Babatunde Irukera, who is the Director General of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
Good evening. These are not the best of times, especially when the Yuletide is here. Let us in on first on what Nigerians, first how this news, how you're taking this news with the FCCPC, so that we can now understand how Nigerians can actually help in your work.
Thank you very much. I think I know the issue of substandard products and fake products is certainly a national priority. And what we've seen in the past couple of months is an unusual and unprecedented escalation. But it's multifaceted. It's quite a problem. One of the speakers earlier on identified one of the issues, which is that the standards must be complied with, and then businesses must also recognize that there are laws. The biggest problem we have with substandard products is that it's not so much as the legitimate manufacturers or brand owners that get involved for the most part. It's usually clandestine businesses in places that are very difficult to detect. I remember that one of the earlier cases that I got involved in when I became the Director General of the Consumer Protection Council was a raid in Uyo with respect to fake rice. We had followed that for a while, and our operatives had, from our South office in Port Harcourt, had interdicted some. And the reason why we ended up performing that raid, which I was part of myself, was that even our employees who are federal government employees ended up being detained by the federal government and the state government, because the people who were involved are pretty powerful people. And so because my employees got detained, that's why I said we're going to open this investigation a little further, and we put everything together and we got those people arrested. And I actually went to Uyo multiple times over a period of 2 years prosecuting the cases myself. I would travel from Abuja to Uyo, and I prosecuted the case. We took evidence and all that. The case hasn't ended. But the point I'm trying to make is that
wait a minute. That case till now hasn't ended?
Hasn't ended.
Now, so there's actually fake rice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't even want to imagine.
Absolutely. This was rice. I mean, we interdicted maybe hundreds of bags of rice that came as Mama Pride, the Stallion, the known producers, known brands. And what it was that in our investigation, we saw the bags. They manufactured these bags in the names of these other people. I mean, we got the real producers of those rice. We took them to Uyo. They testified. And we cross-examined and everything. So it's a problem, but it's something that we all need to get involved in. As a matter of fact, this is what I've spent the past 2 days talking about. I've spoken with the Chief Executive, the Director General and Chief Executive of SON, the Director General, Chief Executive of NAFDAC. And you might know that NAFDAC, from what you saw on the television, NAFDAC just came out of a major raid in southeast Nigeria, where they shut down a whole, an entire street of businesses. Right. And they used the military, they used the police. And so this is a problem that requires that many people it's a law enforcement issue.
Now let's even come to that, because it looks like, in spite of the multiple layers of gatekeepers, you mentioned SON, of course there is even your own organization, the FCCPC, and NAFDAC. In spite of all of that, you have these fake goods coming into Nigeria, even being manufactured right here. Is it a case of a situation where the laws actually, I mean, there's the Counterfeit and Fake Drugs and Unwholesome Processed Foods Act. Is it that these laws are not strong enough in a way that can actually act as a deterrent? Or even when they're arrested, I mean, it's like the fines they pay, they just bring it out of their pockets and they're gone and they go back to their businesses. What needs to be done to fix this?
I think you're halfway through when you at least identify the fact that these things must be offenses, because in reality, like I always say, consequence is the greatest modifier of human behavior. People would get away with whatever they can get away with globally if they can. But I won't say so much as is the law. For instance, I was prosecuting under the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, which I think is quite robust and provides sufficient penalties for illegal conduct. But our legal process, the legal process is still such that, I mean, I had to rent property in Uyo for over a year to store hundreds of bags of products we confiscated. And we had to take a guard, we had to have people watching it, and you know what? We were still losing bags, even though we had a guard. And ultimately, because we continued to lose bags, and we would need this as evidence to ultimately make our case, we now got customs to come all the way from Calabar with trucks to evacuate fake rice from Uyo to Calabar and store in customs warehouse. We had to secure the customs warehouse, we had to keep fumigating, so that we're talking about confiscated products because we need this in the courts. And then there will be the days that we've moved these things by trucks from Calabar back to Uyo and have flown from Abuja to Uyo and court won't sit. Yeah. And so we need to figure out a consequence management system that delivers appropriate consequence very timeously. Now, for some businesses, for some people, the fact that there is the possible penalty of criminal conduct modifies their behavior. But for some people, it doesn't. For instance, I have a case where just filing criminal charges modifies people's behavior. But there are some people who, I mean, you look at these defendants, some of them who were very senior people in state government before they retired. I mean, they came to the court every time. They sat in that dock.
How do you even break those cartels?
Well,
they seem to be way too powerful.
They are very powerful and they are very dangerous. It's actually life-threatening. As a matter of fact, what we did working with customs was even the police and the customs were concerned about their own local operatives. I remember the previous Controller General of Customs deployed a team from, I think it was Enugu, and then one team from Akure who traveled through the night and told them to wait for me at the airport in Uyo. And when I arrived at the airport in Uyo, they secured us with all their equipment, their vans, everything. They brought it from out of town. And even they were really concerned for their lives. I remember as we drove into town, we're passing through a place, they said, this is the way to Oro. And they were speaking to us about a week before then when their own operatives were burnt alive in a customs pickup. Because what they did was that this huge tankers, huge vessels of this fake rice, and they used the boats to go offload the rice and bring it to shore. There's so many creeks. The ship are too big to moor through the creeks, but the boats can do that. And so they have trailers waiting for them and with armed personnel protection. Some of the armed personnel protections are vigilantes or illegitimate law enforcement officers, but I understand some might even be legitimate.
I know we have to go, but quickly here, for everyday Nigerian watching, how best can they test or get to the system to seek redress or to help? Because some of us may have tried it, but for those who haven't, how can they reach out when they have they spot any kind of issue?
I think what has happened in the past few weeks, especially the past few days, is a very important aspect of it. You have me here sitting at 10 p.m. because it has become an issue. And I've always said flagging things, discussing it, identifying it, advocating and calling people out itself is a regulatory tool. So we must continue, we must keep it the front burner, puts everybody on their toes, puts law enforcement on their toes, puts us regulators on our toes, certainly puts those who engage in these malfeasance on their toes. That's the biggest thing. We need to keep the conversation hot and keep it going.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Nigerians really have to be better informed in a way that they can protect themselves. Babatunde Irukera, DG, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight tonight.